Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Thursday, October 9th meeting of the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District Board. Welcome to all those directors present in the meeting room today and online, as well as staff and Island Health representatives. I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting today on the traditional and unceded territory of the Comox First Nation, and that the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District Service Area includes the Coast Salish, Kawakawak, and New Chalmouth territories. So welcome, everyone. Before we commence our agenda for today, I'd like to just take a moment to acknowledge the recent passing of Richard Hagenson. As many of you will know, Richard was a long-term Campbell River resident and a tireless advocate for quality health care. Richard passed away from pancreatic cancer on the 25th of August of this year. Richard served over 20 years as chair of the Campbell River chapter of the Council of Canadians, and for 19 years was an integral member of Citizens for Quality Healthcare. In that role, he advocated on numerous issues, including for the two new hospitals in Campbell River and the Comox Valley, and he had ongoing interaction with the hospital board. Richard was well known as a musician, serving as a front man for many bands, and in latter years entertaining weekly at Discovery Harbour Seniors Home and annually at the Walk for Hearts in Campbell River. He will be remembered for his many contributions to the community through his music and his social activism. We join Richard's partner, Joanne Banks, his long-term colleague, Lois Jarvis, and his extended family and friends in celebrating his life and mourning his loss. Thank you for that. So we do have a change to the agenda. We've had a request that we move, is it item 4? Or item 3 to the end of the agenda, and the reason for that is that Kim Caron from Island Health has been delayed in transit here this morning. So moved by Grieve, is there a seconder? Seconded by Morin. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Thanks very much. And we shall move into the adoption of minutes from the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District Board meeting of April 17th. A motion for adoption, please. Moved by Winnie, seconded by Morin. Any questions, comments, discussion? Anyone opposed? That is carried. And our first item is the, under reports, is the Island Health and Regional Hospital District semi-annual meeting. A report dated May 29th, 2025. A motion for receipt, please. Moved by Morin, seconded by Grieve. And Director Grieve, you'd like to comment?
I would just wonder if the chair would entertain us with some quick surmise of what went on. I did read the minutes, but is there anything you'd like to add?
All right. Thanks for that question. Maybe I'll preface it by letting you know that I spent 24 hours in transit from the other side of the world yesterday, so I may not be as sharp as I might have been otherwise. Some people may not notice the difference. But I appreciate the question, particularly since this board has not met for a while and there has been some activity in the behind the scenes. This was a regular meeting that takes place a couple of times a year involving chairs of the hospital district boards on the Vancouver Island, along with Island Health representatives. And I would say that there was essentially nothing new that we heard other than the financial situation has obviously changed, and the capacity to deliver on capital projects does not appear to be what it was in the last couple of years. Having said that, it was at least gratifying to see that the long-term care hospital in Campbell River was still very clearly on the agenda. I did speak to the concern that this board has had about the hub project that we've been working on for several years, and the fact that there's a new shift giving urgent primary care centers the priority in terms of capital moving forward. It was clear to me that pretty much all hospital boards are in the same shape. And that was actually reinforced at a meeting with the Minister of Health and the Minister of Infrastructure that took place for chairs from around the province last month. There is concern about the demands on local taxpayers in terms of the share of funding towards capital for hospital and healthcare, that there needs to be a new formula and new approaches to that funding formula. Obviously concern about the capacity of the system, the resources that are available, and the ability to deliver on what our communities need. But having said that, it was also a cooperative and collaborative atmosphere, and it was, as detailed in the reports, you would have heard about the different projects and concerns in each part of Vancouver Island. I don't think there's a lot more that I could add, but happy to take any questions. All right. No further discussion. Anyone opposed to receipt of that report? That is carried. And now we have item number 2, a report dated June 2nd regarding the Island Health Liaison meeting. A motion for receipt, please. Moved by Grieve, second by Mawhinney. Questions or comments? James, did you have anything you wanted to comment on in relation to that?
Thanks, Chair, and good morning to the board. Nothing in particular. This is an update or a regular report out from our liaison meetings with Island Health and the Chair and Vice Chair, as well as senior staff from both organizations attend and discuss matters of particular interest. Again, the UPCC and the hub were both discussed, as well as the Campbell River Long-Term Care Project. And yeah, happy to take any questions if there are any, but so it's a regular meeting we have with Island Health, and we'll continue to do that.
Thanks, James. And I will just note that people will be aware that Dave Boychuk, who was our Island Health Liaison in capital projects for the last number of years, has left the organization, and that has created a bit of a gap in terms of our ongoing work together. But we are pleased that Jesse Tarbottom, who's the Director of Capital Planning, Real Estate and Leasing, is here with us today. And he's picking up some of Dave's duties and will be presenting to us later on, along with Kim Caron. So anyone opposed to receipt of that report? Seeing none, that's carried. And our next item is, we're moving number 3 to the end. So we have the 10-year financial plan, item number 4, a report dated October 1st. And we'll take a motion for receipt, please. Moved by Kerr, seconded by Therrien, and over to staff.
Thank you, Chair. Kelly Broughton is our Manager of Financial Planning, and Kelly will be introducing this report. Kelly.
Morning, through the CAO to the directors. The staff are here to present the 10-year financial plan for the board's consideration. This plan was originally developed in 2021 after the board of directors identified their strategic priorities and goals. This plan has been updated with current cost estimates, interest projections for debt and investments, and future cash flow needs. It is important to note that this is a long-term plan, and as such, it is a dynamic and fluid document. This plan can be changed and updated at any point by the board. This plan helps to support our current budget process, the 10-year proposed financial plan, and guide funding paths for as yet undefined future capital projects. During the 2021 strategic planning sessions, the board identified 5 key areas that they would like to focus on: mental health, addiction care, home and community care, long-term care, and acute care. From the key areas, 1 operational initiative, increasing both the funding and the number of named facilities, and 2 major capital projects were developed, the Health Hub and the Long-Term Care Facility. After working with Island Health to further define the capital projects, they were adopted by the board as strategic projects. There have not been any new strategic projects identified by the board or added to this plan. This plan considers future growth, both population and capital expansion, maintains alignment with the strategic goals and priorities identified, provides fiscal responsibility through static, stable, and affordable tax requisitions, while maximizing reserve capabilities and using debt carefully. The province of BC defines sustainability as the ability to provide service provision and other financial requirements without compromising the capacity to meet future commitments and needs. This long-term plan helps to ensure that the goals of sustainability and affordability are met while at the same time allowing for the growth of the community. The Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District is uniquely positioned to provide expanded service levels and keep pace with the expected growth while not requiring any new financial resources. Assumptions. While working through the plan, some assumptions have been made. Both the long-term care facility and the health hub will be starting construction in mid-2026. Although this is unlikely, we have chosen to incorporate the most immediate scenario into the plan to ensure affordability and resiliency. The costs of construction have been updated using the 2025 Commercial Building Cost Guide and an inflationary index of 2%. The long-term care bed project is estimated to cost $54.7 million, up $3.2 million from the original projections of $51.5 million. The health hub is estimated to increase by $6.6 million to $27.6 million for a 30,000 square foot building as compared to the original projections of $21 million. The lease back to Island Health remains at 60% of the annual cost for a period of 25 years. The funding mix for both projects is a combination of reserve contributions and debt. The requisition is projected to remain steady at $12.6 million. The operational expenses are projected to remain status quo for the duration of the plan, apart from a small increase of $25,000 in the board and other expense category. This increase reflects an estimate to cover the additional staff time and oversight required once the full capital projects are underway. The grants to named facilities are projected to remain at the current level of $120,000 annually, and the $1.85 million currently available annually to Island Health for their capital requirements under $1.5 million is maintained. Short-term debt is planned to maximize the cash flow for the new projects, with drawdowns expected to start in 2027. In 2028, there are no planned reserve contributions as the interest payments on the short-term debt draws start and the final long-term debenture payments are made on the existing North Island Hospital projects. Starting in 2029, the funds required for the current debt servicing are redirected into the reserve until 2033, when they are projected to decrease as the new debt servicing requirements for the long-term care beds and the health hub come into the operational budget. Revenues. The main source of revenue for the hospital district is the annual property tax requisition. The requisition is projected to remain at the current level of $12.6 million throughout the entirety of this plan. The Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District receives a small grant in lieu of $182,000 for the federal buildings within the service areas. The interest revenue earned from the investments held is estimated at a conservative annual amount. Currently, the investments are laddered in a way to maximize the interest earned while ensuring the investments adhere to the legislative requirements, are secure and fluid enough to allow the hospital district to take advantage of any new opportunities that could arise. Small transfers from the reserve into revenue provide the funds necessary to cover the short-term debt servicing expenses that are planned in 2028. The annual payment of $662,000 from the Island Health for the health hub lease is planned to start during 2027. The hospital district currently has two long-term debentures, one for the expansion at the St. Joe's Hospital and the others for the North Island Hospital project for the construction and equipping of the hospitals built in the Comox Valley and Campbell River. The current long-term debt carries an annual debt servicing requirements of just under $11 million. The debt for the St. Joseph site will be fully retired at the end of 2026, and the North Island Hospital project debt will be retired in 2028. Just as the long-term debt is retiring, the short-term debt is building for the health hub and the long-term care facility construction. The short-term debt is projected to reach a high of just over $70 million before converting to long-term debt in 2032 to 2033. Reserve fund. At the beginning of 2025, the reserve balance was 31.3 million, with 9.3 allocated to Island Health for capital projects still in progress. This leaves 24.8 million available for board allocations. In 2026, transfers of 9 million are projected to provide funding for the health hub and the long-term care facility. In 2028, a transfer of $1 million is projected to cover the short-term debt servicing. From 2025 to 2028, there are minimal contributions planned to the reserve, but starting in 2029, the 11 million that was required to service the existing debt is redirected into the reserve. As the short-term debt is converted to long-term in 2033, the contributions decline, but an ending balance of just over $60 million is projected for the end of 2035. Debt and reserve balances together. The projections contained within this plan show the rise and the fall in both debt and the reserve balances. As mentioned at the start of the presentation, this plan has been prepared using the most conservative options. The plan shows that the construction of both the health hub and the long-term care facility can be undertaken, and that the projected future long-term debt servicing expenditures on the $73 million are less than what the hospital district is currently paying. The resulting reserve balance at the end of 2035 is projected to be just over the 60 million. However, before the conversion into long-term debt, there will be a decision point. The reserve funds can be used to pay down the short-term debt, reducing the overall borrowing as required, as well as future debt servicing costs. Alternatively, during the annual financial process, the funding mix recommended could change and the annual funding could come directly from the reserve. Right now, the future needs for capital expansion are still unknown, but we can be certain that the needs will only increase as the population in the North Island grows and the life cycling needs for the two hospitals start to come into play. If the $40 million from the reserve is used to pay down the short-term debt, the reserve remains in a strong position to fund new capital requirements with a balance of just over 23 million. The next steps are to incorporate your feedback and direction into the long-term plan, which will be reflected in the proposed 2026 budget being presented in November. Additionally, the board will continue to provide feedback and direction to inform future versions of the plan on an annual basis. Thank you, and happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much, Kelly. Appreciate your work and the work of your staff in that process. Questions or comments from directors? There do not appear to be any, and we don't have a motion on the floor. This is primarily for information this morning.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. This was some information that the board had asked about back during budget time, I guess. So Kelly and finance team was able to put together this analysis and recognizing there's several assumptions in there, and it's a fluid process, but it was felt important to provide this snapshot to the board at this time.
All right, and we do have a question online from Director Jolicoeur. Go ahead, please.
Thanks, Chair, and welcome back. And thanks for the report from staff. Really helpful to see that we are in a really strong position to advance the strategic priorities of the board, namely the long-term care facility and the health hub. I was kind of curious around on page 2 of the staff report, under background and current situation, given that we had previously spent a fair bit of time talking about and trying to understand more intimately the annual requests from Island Health for small equipment and large capital requests on an annual basis. And it highlights there that the 10-year financial plan incorporates a $4.4 million reduction in the annual requests. And then speaks to a baseline at 2021. So I guess a curiosity, is that just a typo? But if you can maybe speak a little more around how we got to the $4.4 million reduction. Is that based on our previous conversations? Is that just a more enhanced analysis from Island Health around their capital needs? Love to hear a little bit more. Thanks.
Sorry to interrupt you there. Just for clarification, the $4.4 million reduction happened in 2021. The board recommended at that time that the requisition go from 17 million down to 12.6. This financial plan was originally presented in 2021 after the board at that time identified their strategic priorities from the strategic planning sessions. Since that time, there haven't been any new strategic priorities added to the plan.
Does that help, Director?
It does. Thank you for the clarity, as I wasn't on the board in 2021. I guess just as a follow-up, Chair, if I can, based on our conversations most recently around those unreserved requests for different assets and the surplus, I think we've recently had a conversation around, I think there's some unspent funds as far back as 2018, I believe, for some equipment. So was that conversation kind of followed up on in the 10 years financial plan to kind of tighten that, or are we looking at ways to maybe rectify some of those long-standing and outstanding expenses on the books?
Yeah, you're referencing the yearly contribution we make to capital requests for equipment from Island Health. Kelly, do you have any comments on the financial rigor around that?
So when we started updating this plan, we did contact our the finance contacts at Island Health. Currently, they have the $9.3 million that available to them. They have responded with some of the projects have been delayed, some are in progress. The problem is that, once a project is identified for Island Health, there can be many reasons why there's a delay in the start date. I don't want to speak too much for Island Health, but I think that they can probably clarify that for you later.
Yes, we do have a presentation coming up from Island Health, and perhaps that question can be addressed at that time if that's agreeable to you, Director Jolicoeur. Thanks very much, Kelly. I don't see any further questions or comments, so I believe we have a motion for receipt in relation to this, and so is anyone opposed to receipt? That will be carried, and thanks very much again, Kelly, for your work and for your presentation today. We'll dispense with our resolution status report dated October 25th. The motion for receipt, please. Moved by Kerr, seconded by Mawhinney. Questions or comments? Anyone opposed? That is carried. All right, so we shall return to item number 3, which is the primary substantive matter on our agenda today, funding request for urgent and primary care centers. And we have a report dated September 26th detailing the request from Island Health. I'll take a motion for receipt, please. Moved by Mawhinney, seconded by Morin, and we'll turn it over to staff to introduce our Island Health presenters.
Thanks very much, Chair. And I've got a few comments to make here on the staff report before turning the presentation over to Kim Crone, Vice President and Chief Financial Officer, and Jesse Tarbotten, Director of Capital Planning, Real Estate, and Leasing with Island Health. And welcome to you both for coming today. The staff report that is on receipt right now on the agenda, it includes a recommendation to approve the request for cost sharing for the UPCCs. I will note that in the report, there's some context and history around the request for that funding share, as well as recognition of the board's interest in the health hub concept as one of the strategic priorities. There's been several attempts made to engage with Minister of Health, given the board's direction on the conversation the board wants to have to prioritize the hub project. We haven't been successful in achieving the minister meeting to date, although we still do have a request in and are hopeful that we'll be able to have such a minister meeting request realized. The report does go into some detail around some opportunities to be able to finance the request from Island Health and a couple of different options there. The report also then concludes with the recognition that we are still trying to fulfill that minister meeting request. And as such, the board has a couple of options to consider. It could consider the recommendation on the agenda. It could also consider deferring this matter in full until after a minister meeting has been held, or supporting the funding for perhaps the Campbell River location, knowing that it's the Comox Valley location that is of most interest, I think, to the board. So with those introductory remarks, happy to take any questions right now, but I do know that Kim and Jesse have information here to share as well, and a PowerPoint. So it may be better to receive that information first.
Thanks very much, James. And Kim and Jesse, if you'd like to press your buttons, we'll turn your mics on, and we'll turn the floor over to you to start your presentation.
Thank you very much, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, happy to be here. I'm Kim Crone, the Chief Financial Officer at Island Health, and really happy to be here today to present on the outstanding questions that the regional board has. And Jesse's going to lead us through that, and then we'll both be here to answer and respond to any questions you have. Turn over to Jesse.
Thanks, Kim. So I'm just going to walk through this presentation, and I'm happy to take questions on the fly. I'm not sure what the protocol here is, but
yeah, that'll work. Thanks.
Yeah, happy for you to intro. I'll see if I can keep the flow going, certainly. So thanks for the opportunity to present on this. We starting from slide 1. Where do I point this thing? Oh. Okay, so Island Health and Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District have a shared vision for a health hub that's been developing over a number of years. And it's about multi-service and an integrated approach. Also the consolidation of disparate programs that are currently housed in sometimes substandard lease spaces throughout the hospital district. There's always been that intent to try and co-locate the services, consolidate leases, improve efficiency, and overall actually looking to reduce costs in the long term. That vision is very much alive, but we still have a lot of work to do in terms of ensuring its viability in scope, location, and financing. So not only does it cost a capital amount to implement a new infrastructure project, there's also operation dollars that are involved as well. And right now, as you will all know, there is a very difficult fiscal situation emerging in the province, of which the health authority is not immune. So the challenges to advancing the hub project at this time are largely fiscal realities, but we also don't have the vital pieces that are needed to be in place in order to move forward expeditiously at this time. A viable parcel of land, it needs to go somewhere. The real estate scans that our team did turned up earlier on last year, provided some options. Those weren't found to be suitable. And so the search continues, including discussing with the City of Courtenay later on today, and also reinitiating a scan as we look to revisit this hub. Also the sustainable financing model. So you did speak in your financial report to the hub and how it would potentially be financed over 25 years, just in terms of lease arrangements. When we move a bunch of programs into a new site, there's necessarily incremental operating increases that are incurred. So even if the development is financed, it still has ongoing operational impacts, and that's a huge issue for us right now with the provincial direction saying that there can be no increase in incremental operating. You will have probably noticed in the media that there has been quite a number of cuts happening at Island Health that have impacted our department, as you know, and more broadly as well. There's also the need to clearly define the scope of services. Over time, the hub model had taken in to include many different services through those discussions. And as the scope increases, the complexity increases and the cost increases. So there's a need to revisit the overall scope and intent of the hub at this time in order to make sure that it's actually viable and focused on health services. These are significant prerequisites, and they need to be revisited through the and another look back at the MOU to make sure that it reflects the new fiscal and planning context. So the UPCC, basically the hub, when it was originally conceived of, and forgive me because I was not part of that initial planning, was a lease consolidation exercise, looking to see if you could bring a bunch of different services into the same place. The UPCC or primary care was brought in later in the process as, wouldn't it be great? But in the meantime, there's been a provincial priority program around funding specifically UPCCs across the province, including 2 within your communities, which is Campbell River and Comox. So we have an opportunity right now to stand up these important services in the near future. In fact, we've been going through the process of getting the provincial approvals over the last year to try and deliver this thing on a very tight timeline that they're pushing us to achieve. And we have the stage 2, which is business planning for the ministry, takes place in 2 stages. There's the initial concept. This is the service planning we need for this particular facility. This is the square footage. And then you have to go back with, this is what the lease budget would be. And you get the second round of approvals, which allow you to go and sign a lease. Campbell River, we're in negotiations right now on a potential proponent. So the question then becomes, why advance the UPCC now? And as Jake and James have told me, you know, that we know that the ideal would be that if it all happened all at the same time. But in this fiscal context, the opportunity to have a fully funded operational and with the provincial dollars on a health service is not going to be a frequent opportunity going forward, at least for the next number of years, as everybody's expected to tighten their belts. So this will deliver an immediate benefit to the community while we continue to plan for the hub. In other words, do the pieces that need to happen, find the land, look at the scope, and make sure the thing is going to be viable and be ready for when that funding loosens up. So this work doesn't replace the hub, but it also it lays the groundwork for it, I would argue. So yeah, the UPCC, I know that Dave gave a very succinct presentation. I gave him a version of a presentation that I don't think he delivered one that was much better. So you know all about the benefits, I think, of the UPCC, but if I would revisit them, it increases access to care, supports unattached patients, those that don't have a family doctor, and reduces pressure on emergency departments.
Jesse, could you comment on that last block in the previous slide where it says acts as a complementary block for the eventual hub? Does this mean that if Island Health is able to find a suitable piece of land that potentially you would build the UPCC and it could be expanded into a hub concept at a later date?
Yeah, when I first engaged with Jake on this, we were sort of looking at whether or not because the way that it works is that you put out a notice of leasing opportunities and potential proponents come forward with a sort of package saying we can renovate or we can build this property. So I did put forward that question, like, is there an opportunity to expand on this site at a future date and so on. For the Comox one, it doesn't look like that's going to be viable just based on the proponent that came forward. But adjacencies may be able to be realized, and we can revisit that through the process. But yeah, so that was one of our first, could it be phase 1 and then there's phase 2? But because we're on these really tight provincial timelines, we're kind of like, we can only deal with what's in front of us in terms of the proposals that come forward.
Thanks. And the other thing I just wanted to clarify that you said is that if a UPCC goes forward, which it sounds like it's a provincial priority, the funding actually comes directly from the province as opposed to the current Island Health budget.
Yeah, it's net new funding. So the operations funding come in the form of lease payments and a capital contribution as well. And typically the RHD will cover a percentage of that cost.
Thanks.
The capital cost rather, not the operating cost, just to clarify. And I don't know if I need to necessarily go through the benefits of the UPCC, but I will briefly just go over them here. Timely access for residents who can't reach their family provider, reduced ER congestion at the Comox Valley Hospital, and also, of course, Campbell River, because there'll be a separate one in Campbell River. A team-based model where there's a whole host of supports in one location. I visited I visited a couple of these, and they're great in terms of being able to provide a viable alternative to showing up at the emergency when you don't have something that's acute. Continuity and follow-up care where possible, and integration with primary care networks to strengthen community health capacity. That's the overall clinical governance initiatives that Island Health has come in with in order to improve the delivery of healthcare. So just to loop back, this is what we're looking at for the Campbell River and the Comox UPCC, just in terms of the current status. And want to reiterate at this point that our commitment to partnership with the RHD, just in terms of the hub really being a shared objective, that we can revisit the MOU with the RHD, continue the conversations that are important, especially around the land piece, which is we need somewhere to site this. And also we'll be working concurrently through our real estate department on the programs that are housed currently in lease space to make sure that we're ready to go when the opportunity arises to give notice on those leases and move folks into the new location. So I know it's not ideal. I know that the ideal would be for the UPCC to and the hub to be one and the same. But unfortunately, that due to the fiscal realities that I painted previously and other factors in terms of where the planning is at this stage, that's not viable. So this is also just some next steps, and I don't think I need to reiterate these. So for the hub, there's a need to go and look again at the scope to make sure that the focus is on healthcare, and make sure that we have a delivery model that's going to be sustainable and supportable by the provincial government in terms of the need for incremental operating and likely the need for supplementary capital. Usually a development of this sort of scale, whatever you price it at, it ends up being double. So you have to have all your ducks in a row in order to make sure it's viable, so it doesn't just fall down at the stage of actually going forward for the dollars. Okay. I would, I don't know, Kim, did you want to add anything at this?
Jesse, just before you pass it to Kim, I did want to ask about the engagement with community. You mentioned that you've got some meetings with the city of Courtenay later today. I'm wondering what sort of engagement there is with the Campbell River community in relation to the proposed UPCC there.
Yeah, I mean, I do just we're taking the opportunity to meet. I believe James is the CAO of Courtenay. One of the items that came forward was the potential for siting the hub just in some land that that is owned by the city. And so taking this opportunity to just have some of those basic discussions and just see how their master planning work might dovetail with this in the medium term. And we have an opportunity to as we go back and revisit the hub concept and refine it, to restart that engagement, both with the folks in Campbell River and also in Comox and Courtney as well. But we're at the sort of beginning of that process. And my intention is to more fully engage our real estate and leasing department, going through the financial model of the hub, trying to find the right viable approach so we can actually move this in as swift a manner as possible. Kim, do you have any comments?
Yeah. Jesse covered everything, so I think we would have the opportunity to open it up for discussion and any questions that you have for us.
All right, thanks very much to both of you. And probably if you leave your mics on, that might be not a bad idea. But we'll open it up to the board, and we'll start off with Director Kerr, who I believe is in seat number 19. Go ahead, Director Kerr.
Thanks, Chair. And thanks, Kim and Jesse, for coming today. I have a number of questions, Chair, but I'll just ask one and then go back in the queue. I guess that just going back to what the Director Jolicoeur mentioned about how part of our strategic plan has been this development of this health hub. I believe we're still waiting. I guess it's been 2.5 years since March 2023 for VHA to sign off on the MOU. So just wondering where we are in that process and if you would consider signing that soon so we can move to next steps.
Yeah, Jake actually made me, I haven't been involved previously in this until Dave's departure. My focus was on some of the major capital projects. So this is an opportunity to go and revisit that document and make sure that it's appropriate for where we're going with this thing. But yeah, an MOU absolutely makes sense. I haven't had a chance to fully review it at this point, but I think it would be our intention to revisit it and move it forward so we have a shared understanding of how this is going to proceed. I think one of the complications is because we're beholden to our provincial funders, it's sometimes difficult for us to make commitments that over things that we can't necessarily control in terms of the funding and the approvals, but certainly we can revisit that.
Thanks for that. And Director Jolicoeur online.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks for coming to present to us. I also have a few sets of questions, so I'll get back in line after my first one. And so,
why don't you go with two while you're there?
Okay. The first one, if we can go back to the slide around the UPCC, the stage 2 approval from the province. And so obviously, you know, whether it was you or someone else within your team was following the direction and the concerns of this board. And so I am a little concerned that Island Health continued to move forward with planning without the board's approval to stage 2. So I'm wondering if you can kind of fill in, I guess I'm just confused how financial planning would proceed with the province without our approval, because it appears since the last time we met, it has received approval and is moving forward. And just with that, was it communicated through that process that this board has not endorsed this project as a standalone permanent location for Comox UPC?
Yeah, there's quite a few items to unpack there. But yeah, so as I said, this is a provincial priority program existing on a track sort of province-wide. And so my understanding is that the RHGs are, you know, you can choose whether or not to support a project, but they're not in the position to authorize whether or not a project proceeds or not. I mean, I could be wrong in the governance of that. We ask for your support of this project, but at the end of the day, it's an Island Health decision on what makes the most pragmatic sense for moving forward. And that was done, basically that was our internal decision to actually move forward and make sure that we could stand up a service in the community, and it was not going to be able to be delivered within the hub.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, can I just add to Jesse's comments? We also get a lot of our direction from the ministry. on how to proceed on these projects. And I think, as Jesse has mentioned a couple of times, it's a province-wide priority to advance these UPCCs. So we're essentially being told we need to move forward on this. Our hands are a little bit tied about how much flexibility we have.
Okay, thanks. My second question, going to funding. I think there was a slide that spoke about that at the beginning. And so my understanding to the planning to date, I think 5 years of planning, we hadn't really spoken other than an added primary care service. Our hope was that it was the UPCC. We hadn't actually spoken about an increase in services, but a consolidation of services. So can you kind of rectify the comments around the fiscal environment and challenges around operational funding? Because to date, the conversations were that the lease consolidation was actually going to decrease overall operational costs for Island Health by consolidating those services within one hub. So I'm wondering if you can provide a little bit more context around how a hub model would impact operational funding.
Yeah, I think the hope is that in the long term, it decreases costs, but when you have legacy leases that exist out inside the community, they're typically much less expensive than standing up a completely new site. So there's usually a net increase in costs when you move into a new purpose-built site.
Okay, thanks. I hope that because we're all friends that we can negotiate a fair lease agreement, but I'll pass it on, Chair. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Director. And back to Director Kerr.
Thank you.
And feel free to follow up.
Okay,
You
sure.
don't need to restrict yourself to one question.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm again, we've been waiting 2.5 years for the MOU to be signed, which is disappointing. I'm a little shocked you haven't read it. Probably a good document to read, considering that is such an important component of our.
Sorry, let me clarify there.
Yeah.
I've looked it over. I
Okay.
I haven't analyzed it in detail.
Okay. 2.5 years, still counting. Okay. The other thing is you mentioned that this health hub is a lease consolidation exercise. It's not. It's a patient care. It's a quality of care exercise. By wrapping around services around the patient in the center, primary care around the patient, and the healthcare services in our community wrapped around primary care, creating efficiencies, creating higher quality of care, and actually reducing healthcare costs, reducing the burden on the healthcare system and BHA, reducing ER visits and reducing hospital admissions. That's the point of the process. This is not about consolidating leases. It's about quality patient care. So that's really important to understand. There are 35 plus UPCCs in the province. I guess my next question is, how many hospital boards have contributed to these UPCCs?
I don't have the data on that.
It's a small number, right? So my point is, I don't understand why we're having this UPCC discussion at the same time as the health hubs discussion. Let's sign the MOU. Let's go down the health hub path. Let's have that conversation. And if you want a UPCC, build it, fund it. Don't ask us to fund it. That's not what it's in our strategic plan. Our strategic plan is to build a health hub. And if ideally we could have those together, perfect, but you're telling us in the Comox Valley, we can't even put them together. So we'll continue our strategic plan, going down the route of building a health hub to increase primary care and take funding pressures off the system. But conflating the two and putting them together doesn't make any sense.
Thanks. Maybe I'll start, and then if Jesse has more detail, he can add more color. So thank you for your comments, and we hear you. We felt some of the same frustration. I think to start, when Jesse talked about the hub being a lease consolidation, that was the idea at the beginning. So that's where the concept came from. And then working with Max, I think everybody here knows Max and other clinical providers, we thought, well, if we're doing this lease consolidation, maybe it makes sense to make it something even more beneficial to the community. So I don't think Jesse was saying it was only going to be lease consolidation. That's where the idea started from. But that's where it started from us. And then we went on a journey to ended up where we are. And certainly, yes, as Jesse said, we can move forward with signing the MOU and making any edits or changes. I just want you to, and I think Jesse has said this, is how the lack of flexibility Island Health actually has in the contributions that we can make. We don't have any capital at all outside of what now the Ministry of Infrastructure gives us. We don't have the authority or the ability to reallocate something. So that makes a challenge on our part. The other challenge we have is we don't have any incremental operating funding that would go toward a health hub. And this is a little bit of change that's happened since COVID in the years post-COVID, where we did have, I would say, generous funding from the ministry, where we did have flexibility to move things around and invest in new projects. That's gone. We don't have that at all. And in fact, our funding letter now says a clause in it, something like Island Health will not invest in any new services or programs. So that's really limiting where we are right now. And I think in addition to all the challenges Jesse raised about the difficulty finding a suitable location and how programs would come together, the economic environment has changed so much for us. But it doesn't mean we don't want to still move forward. There is an opportunity to continue the planning and to continue the opportunities and to continue for both of us to have conversations with the Ministry of Infrastructure. We can continue to move forward with those. I just want to be realistic about what we can do in the short term. And just, I think it's important we all know what to manage expectations of what we can achieve.
Okay, thanks for that, Kim. And we have next in the line, Director Arbor online.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Good discussion, and I think Dr. Kerr kind of took some of my thoughts away there, but maybe I can reframe them in a different manner so that maybe staff can answer. And I would note that for part of the Valley, our MLA is Josie Osborne, who's also the Minister of Health, and I'll definitely send her a link to this discussion today because I think I do agree with Dr. Kerr and Dr. Jolliker that the evolution of this file has taken on some very unexpected turns. And as Dr. Kerr says, if the province, what we heard today is if the province is going to fund a UPCC and they have funded it across the province in all kinds of different places without contributions from local government, let's do that. And they are also correct that the conversation around the health hub is what was interesting to this board for contributions. It was also an agreement between the folks from Strathcona Regional District and us. So there's some politics involved here where we supported funding the long-term care facility in Campbell River, and we were going to get a health hub. And we're basically a 50-50 board, between the two jurisdictions. And all of a sudden, the Comox Valley is going to get well short in that dialogue. So my question, turning that into question, is should the board decide not to provide funding for the UPCC, do you stand by your comment that you are under provincial mandate to put a UPCC in the Valley and it's going to happen regardless? Thank you.
Yes, we will proceed. We won't make the ministry very happy. We'll probably get some rough ride from them, but yeah, we will proceed.
That's very helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that is very helpful. Thank you. And we'll go to Director Grieve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Kim, for your cold water reality. I'm going to repeat what I said a few months ago, that obviously the province of BC doesn't know how important we think we are. We exist at the pleasure of the province. We have to recognize that Canada and BC are going through real fiscal realities right now, unprecedented. We haven't seen the worst of it. So rather than being, and I'm going to get called out by the chair, entitled First World Brats again, and looking gift horses in the mouth to see how their dental health is, we obviously have to move ahead. So by putting obstacles in front of healthcare, it's nice to have the gold-plated, platinum-plated, best-case scenario. But really, folks, the cookie jar is dry. It's empty. We're not baking any cookies in the near future. So my advice is let's suck it up and do what's best for the people. not what's best for our own political ambitions. Thank you.
Thanks, and we'll move to Director Jolicoeur. Oh,
Yeah, thank-
excuse me, Director Jolicoeur. We actually have a first-time speaker in the room, so I'll take them first. Director Dahl.
I just wanted to say for the Campbell River Urgent Primary Care Facility that is in lease negotiations, this is the first that I've heard about this. And while I've been sitting here, I've texted city staff and the rest of council. None of us have heard about this. So I find it interesting that Island Health continues to negotiate things in our communities without bringing us into the conversation at all. Island Health did the same thing on Nichols Road last year when they bought a house on Nichols to have medical detox in with no consultation with the city or the community. I'm wondering if you can tell us where this will be located and if our bylaws have been considered at all.
Sorry, where the Campbell River UPCC will be located?
Yeah.
I think that's out for,
Well, it says it's being negotiated.
I'll let Jesse respond to that one, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when there hasn't been finalized negotiations, then you can't discuss the business deal, the real estate deal. That's pretty standard.
But I will say your first part of your comments about that the Campbell River municipality representative have not been consulted, that we'll follow up on that to see what was going on there, because that's not our intent at all to go off and do things on our own.
But that's what you're doing. If you're negotiating the lease agreement before you've
Yes.
consulted with the community or at least city council, you are doing it without our input.
Yeah, and I think I'm gonna let Jesse speak to it because he's the expert on real estate. I was more talking about the consultation that we are proceeding with the UPCC, not the actual negotiations.
Yeah, I recognize what you're saying, and I can follow up on that. And my typical understanding is that because of fair business rules within the province, when you put out a notice of lease and opportunity, you basically are whoever is the people that actually put forward opportunities are the ones that you can select from. But in terms of actual input from the community, I'll have a discussion with the real estate team to see how that works within that process. Certainly the notice of leasing opportunity is a public document for procurement, but I'm happy to follow up on that and then come back to you with an answer.
I'd like to know at least if you've considered our bylaws.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, of course. I mean, it's not you. How do you mean?
We have areas that we don't want some of these type of facilities in our town.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's no different than when they bought the house to put the detox center in and hadn't talked to anybody on council. I found out from a neighbor who saw people going in and out of a house and walked over to see what's going on here. Now, that's not the way that council should find out. You know, we can have in-camera meetings where things can't be discussed outside of them. And Island Health could actually find out whether what they're doing is going to be a disturbance to the rest of the community and unacceptable. But they don't do that. And it looks to me like they're doing the exact same thing again now that they did last time.
On a primary care building. Yeah, okay. I'm hearing what you're saying, and certainly I'll take that away and communicate that back to the team.
I think too, sometimes on the detox, it's other parties are involved. Like we did not purchase a house, another party did, but certainly our mental health folks program was involved in it. And because we're such a big organization, I'm not trying to make excuses because it's not acceptable, but sometimes our capital team doesn't know what our mental health team is doing. And that's where I think we need to do a better job, because we hear you, it's not acceptable.
Yeah, thanks for that. I appreciate what Director Dahl is saying, that elected officials in the community would appreciate the opportunity to hear about the plan, understanding that perhaps the specific negotiations can't be disclosed, but just some sort of a communication around this is what we are hoping to do, and do you have any concerns about where this might be located, that type of thing. I think that's what you're referring to, Director Dahl. And I'll give you the last word before passing on.
That's pretty much what I was trying to get at. I think everyone here understands that Island Health doesn't buy anything. They use BC Housing to build everything. So, that's a really poor excuse for why something would get bought in a location where it's not wanted.
Sorry, I
Island
wasn't
Health
trying to make
doesn't buy
excuses.
anything.
Yeah.
Well, deflection.
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify, there is a specific, on the supportive housing side, BC Housing is involved on that particular program, but they're not involved in anything else to do with our real estate or anything like that. It's just that particular partnership on those projects. Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Let's move on. And Councillor Jolicoeur, you have another question or comment? Or Director Jolicoeur, my apologies.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think one of the comments that I had previously made over this saga of the hub was around the necessity for us to be working really close together, which an MOU would articulate quite clearly. And I think one of the frustrating things you're probably sensing in the room is that every time we meet, we're getting little dribbles of new information. And in your letter to us, you spoke to something that we hadn't heard about before, which was the first time. And so I appreciate finding out about it. I think it would have been, helpful to know earlier, which is that the hub has not made it to the ministry financial capital plan. That's new information to this board, so thank you for sharing it in the letter, where you articulate, I think, a few of the financial realities. And so my question for clarity is, again, what was shared with the ministry around the context of the hub? Was our strategic plan shared with them around how we've committed to doing this work, and Island Health would be the leaseholder and we would build it? A little bit more context around that, and any context around the decision making and or any feedback from the ministry around their indication of committing to this in the future.
Okay, again, I'll try and unpack that a little bit. Just in terms of the priority investment roadmap, the last time, usually that's from a call from the province to let them know what the overall fiscal priorities are for the organization. The last time they made such a call was in 2023, so I don't know how it dovetails necessarily with this project, but I can look into that further. Just in terms of what's being communicated to the province, I know Dave Boychuk, before he left the organization about a month and a half ago, I guess at this point, is it a month and a half ago? He regularly met with the minister and also the senior officials in the province and informed them exactly what we were working on in different communities. I believe that communication would have happened, and I know that also Kim has those senior level discussions as well. So I don't know if you
I think that's true, yes, but I would also, again, full transparency, it's not like a formal request. It's more when we meet with the ministry staff, it's to go through kind of the projects that we're working on, what the planning is, the state of the planning, et cetera. There was never like a formal, request put forward to the ministry regarding the hub. It was more an awareness of something we were working on.
Anything that's over $5 million project-wise, whether or not it's sort of leasing or TIs and capital and so on, requires a business plan be put forward, and that can only happen, of course, when there actually is a project to put forward. So once this project has gotten to a stage where it can actually be put forward for provincial approval, it will happen.
And that provincial approval is required, even if 100% of it is externally funded. So we've run into that with our foundations.
Yeah, I'll just add that although we haven't secured a formal meeting with the minister on this issue, the ministry is aware of our strategic plan and of the history of the development of the hub. The minister and her officials have in fact heard about that directly from us. Most recently at the meeting that I acknowledged that the with provincial chairs of hospital boards, where I restated this health board's interest in that project and the process that had been underway. Councillor Director Morin.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for being on the hot seat today. Um, yes, I guess well, I mean, I think all the comments that have been made, I've been in agreement with in terms of this shifting of priorities and not meeting the board's strategic plan and the rationale around some of those directions that we've decided to take. Um, the land piece is interesting because if the UPC, there's quite a few things in the September 4th letter that are concerning. So the first one being that, that the Comox UPCC has advanced through the notice of leasing opportunity process. So, and then it goes on to say how advanced that process is. And then, proceeding with the standalone UPCC is the most viable and responsible path forward. And hub is not part of the ministry's approved capital plan. I mean, there's some pretty strong messaging in that letter that makes me think that really the hub is off the agenda. That's what I read in that letter. And I'm concerned that focusing on, or, shifting resources to the UPCC is also, looking at land, goes on further about, we want help with the land acquisition. So what happens with the work that's going on around the hub? It just feels like it's not going to happen. And I think the point around the MOU is really important. If the priorities can shift on a whim, then next we could say, yes, we're going to commit to the UPCC and help out. But then next month we get, oh, the hub's completely off the table now. So it just feels really, I'm not saying it's Island Health per se, but I think there's, some big concerns around the process of this and how long it's been going on, and the messaging that we're getting. So I'm inclined to really wait for the meeting with the minister to hash out some of this, and I'll see what others have to say. But I'm concerned that the rug, frankly, is going to be pulled out if we agree to the UPCC support. So thank you.
Thanks, Director Morin. And online we have Director Sinnott. Director Sinnott, are you still there? She may have,
Sorry, there I'm better.
Oh, there you are.
Yes, sorry about that. I thought I hit the unmute as well. So it goes back to my original question. I think the last time we were talking about these is, have we now received the minister's designation that these UPCCs are going to be health facilities as required under the Hospital Act to allow us to actually use our funds? And if so, where is that designation?
I'll have to actually look into that. My understanding is that you can't designate something that doesn't yet exist. So the actual designation would happen prior to actual opening of those facilities. But I will have to look into that and get back with an answer, because
so for follow-up,
I'm not 100%.
I have other concerns about the amount and how it can possibly cost as much for capital in Campbell River is 6.4 million, and whether or not we get a chance to review how those capital costs are calculated. On top of that, if we do give approval as recommended by staff, can we make it contingent on receiving that designation, or else we're offline with the hospital, our powers under the Hospital District Act?
Yeah, we can't take your contribution without a designation, so a designation would occur. I've never seen a situation where it did not happen when we're receiving and requesting RHD funding. And in our letters from the ministry, they've been very clear about that as well.
Okay, so I just want to follow up. I mean, the concern that Mayor Dahl has raised is with respect to what the impact of certain facilities are and how they're operated. So I take it they're going to be completely operated by Island Health, or they're going to be operated by a different operator, because choice of operator is a vital communication point in our community.
These are Island Health. These are Island Health operated services.
Okay.
I think to be clear, what you're talking about is essentially a health clinic where doctors and nurses and other practitioners are, and people go there for appointments. That's essentially what you're talking about.
Yeah, but they're not
And
as
you can
benign as you
present- you-
think. My experience when being in Kelowna was that they had one operating right next to the Coast Hotel, and it was not well operated. So I just want to say there is some concern.
And I don't know
Thanks,
if you'd
Director
be
Simmons,
interested.
and we'll get Kim and Jesse to respond.
Just respond, those are really good questions. And if people were interested, we could certainly give you a tour of one of the UPCs that is in operation on the island, and you could see, you know, how they operate, what they look like, or even a virtual tour. We could organize something like that for you if it was of interest to the board.
Maybe you could just clarify where centers are currently located on the island.
Oh,
The newest one is Nanaimo. There's one in Cowichan.
3 or 4 in Victoria.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Director Sinnott, and we'll move next to Director Cole Hamilton.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. So my sort of observations at this point is that we've wanted a health hub, and that if the UPCC goes ahead, it would remove the center of the clinic that would be at the center of any future health hub. So by supporting this, we're essentially like, that's the end, I think, of any meaningful push towards a health hub. As a consequence, I really would like for us to have the opportunity to speak to the minister. She represents this region. She knows us well. She knows the needs here. And if a UPCC is coming either way, which is, I think, what we heard, whether we support it or not, then I don't see a value in placing these precious resources we have to support something that will defeat the health hub, and it's likely to happen regardless of whether we contribute. So very much in favor of meeting with the minister, talking this through further before making any sort of commitment like this for the Comox Valley location.
Thanks, thanks for that. And Director Jolicoeur.
Yeah,
excuse me, Director Jolicoeur. Once again, we have a new speaker, and so I'm going to opt to give Director Vanish the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I think one of the most interesting things that just came out of the meeting, and I really appreciate Jess and Kim for being here. Kim, you mentioned that the UPC in Courtenay is happening regardless of whether we contribute. So I think that's honestly a good news story for us. Let's get this UPC built in Courtenay with provincial funding. Let's move forward with the Campbell River UPC with contributions from our board, and let's continue what we've already said we're going to do is put our money towards a health hub. I think let's communicate that clearly to the province, and let's also say we're a willing collaborator. We want to be a partner, and if this UPC can be turned into a health hub as well, and there's room for that, that's great. But regardless, we welcome the province building a UPC, and we want to continue building a health hub. Thank you.
Thanks, and returning to Director Jolicoeur.
Yeah, and I agree wholeheartedly with the comments of the previous two speakers. I just have one last clarification question, in part because I feel like we've been along such a journey, and the last few times we've been on the conversation of the hub, we had commitments from your predecessor around things like I'll be sending my real estate team back to the community. We'll be finalizing the assessment of the operational needs between all the different services that we've discussed, engagement with community groups, which I think occurred. And so I was a little surprised in the next steps slide to see almost all of those items that I understood as complete or partially or very close to complete being listed. A lot of work has gone in the community at this board, and I imagine obviously with your staff. And so I am a little confused. I will also say that the topic of land, I myself have sent some green fields that are serviceable I know that Courtney staff have sent multiple locations over the years, and I think what I would encourage us to consider is maybe being a little bit more creative around what that could look like. I know that ideally it's a greenfield that's serviceable and it's on a public transit route, and we have this long wish list, and I wouldn't want perfection to be the reason why this doesn't move forward from a siting perspective. And so that would just be a comment I'd leave, but I would like to hear a little bit about some of the items on the next step slide under the Health Hub planning, because I did understand that the core service mix was completed, and the site feasibility studies for some of the locations have been previously done, and we understood things like parking, and we understood things like public transit. And so I just would like some clarity here, because I think the last few meetings we've had, the work had been done, and we had been that had been shared with us. So.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that we would dispense with all the prior work that's been done. It's just a matter of going back and looking at the scope and seeing what actually is going to be viable to move forward with. So I know there was a lot of work that was done by our real estate team to try and find a potential location, and none of those were deemed to be suitable. So certainly those explorations continue, and that's definitely one of the major pieces. But there's also, you know, a couple of other interlocking pieces that I mentioned that need to be revisited as well. I understand the frustration here. I know that the priority for the regional hospital district, for the hospital district, has been this shared service model. I recognize that. I can hear your frustration. In my conversations with Jake and James, you know, our intent here is to find a way through to still realize what the core purpose of this exercise has been, and try and find a way to follow through. The items that I already detailed in the presentation are the reasons why we can't co-locate with a UPCC. I get it's suboptimal, and I recognize that. But what we're looking for here is a way to thread through and continue the work and get it to a place where it's actually something that can move forward. So yeah, we're not saying that everything starts from zero. There's a lot of good work that's being done already, but a couple of the core pieces are not there, which means that, you know, that it's not going to continue along with the UPCC. Yeah.
Thanks for that. And next speaker is Director Morin.
So for clarification, today, obviously not going into details about what properties are going to be discussed or looked at, but is the search for land today for UPCC or a health hub?
This is about Health Hub.
Yeah, and my concern is that, you know, there's only so much land. So you find you're looking for property for a health hub today. I guess what stops anybody from saying, oh, this would be great for UPCC, and then it sort of, oh, I hate using the word, but trumps the health hub in terms of the small amount of land that's available. And I appreciated Director Jolicoeur's comment about all the work that's been done already, and it reminded me of how far down the road we've gone with the health hub. Just, yeah, that there's been a lot of work that has gone into this over the years. And so I'm still concerned that even today, when considering properties, that the health hub will, you know, go down the list of priorities. So, you know, the commitment from this board for the hub is a lot of money. I think we committed a lot of money that I think is worth a good partnership. And I feel like that partnership is being undervalued if the the goalposts are changing and the priorities are changing. So again, I guess we'll see where things go. I don't think there's many speakers left, but I would like to save this decision until after we talk to the minister. Thanks.
Can I just respond? It's been really enlightening for me to listen to all of you today about your commitment and passion for the hub. And I just want to reiterate that we're not giving up. Like we're in challenging times right now, but it doesn't mean that we're just going to put our pens down and say, oh, it's too hard. There's no money. We're not going to do anything. We do have a commitment to continue to work with you to advance the hub.
Thanks for that. And we have another speaker, I believe, Director Chapman online.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Great. So once again, we have the province dictating we're going to have UPCCs throughout the province, whether we want it or not. I think we are in a position to better indicate what our taxpayers need and want. I think the hub concept would be more appropriate for many communities rather than the UPCC. And I agree, we should be talking to the minister and putting that concept forward. Maybe they'd rather have that instead of the UPCC. I don't know where the UPCC came from, where it was birthed, but I support the hub concept, and that should be what we should be focusing on, that with the minister. And I'm not willing to spend any of our resources until we have a meeting with the minister and get it sorted out what it is we're trying to do. I sympathize with Vancouver Island Health Authority. It's a large organization, it's hard to control. And I think there are other options we can employ to bring ourselves more into line of what the need is. I think Vancouver Island Health Authority needs to look seriously at how they're governing this health and what they're supposed to be doing. We have Colwood going their own way, and last night on the news we learned that the city of Surrey is thinking the same thing. And my observation is most of the health authorities in the province are failing to meet the mandate of delivering health care that the people need. So let's try and get a meeting with the minister and push the hub idea and the concept forward. I'm not willing to spend any money we have in reserve or unallocated reserves for the UPCC until we meet with the minister. Thank you.
Thanks, Director. And Director Arbor.
Yeah, thanks. I guess I'm trying to figure out what will eventually be the appropriate motion for today, and I'm hearing a few directors talk about waiting for a meeting with the minister, but waiting has been the name of the game on this file, and always kind of waiting and more waiting and deferring. So maybe my question would be, and that Island Health staff or the staff that's there today can answer that maybe, or maybe they can't actually, but maybe for our board, is it preferable to just decline funding today and say that we will reserve funds towards, we will keep our share of funds towards a health hub, which has been the conversation for 5 years. I'm hearing that the UPCCs are likely to go forward, and I'd rather that they get implemented quicker. So if we have to wait another meeting and another meeting, maybe they are on track. My question basically is, are you on track to get this project started tomorrow on the UPCC with or without funding? Because I would just prefer, based on the discussions today, to just decline the request but to also know that we appreciate that the UPCCs will be coming to our communities and that we will reserve funding for a future health hub.
Kim or Jesse, any comments?
Sorry, was the question of what the timeline for the delivery of the UPCCs are?
Yes, and within that, would a delay of a minister meeting help or hinder that process?
Yeah, I mean, I can't comment. I know that the request for cost sharing on the UPCCs came in February. And so certainly in the way the legislation works now is that you can choose not to fund island health priorities, and that's at your discretion, and it can put those projects at risk. My understanding is, of course, that I mean, and that communication can go to the minister when you eventually meet with her. You know, we explained the rationale of why we're going in this direction. I know that there's a lot of disappointment, and so you know it's up to the RHD on how to proceed based on the current legislation and the responsibilities of the RHD to do cost sharing on health initiatives.
Thanks for that. I will just.
And sorry, the timeline. The timeline is, I'll have to get back to you on when we perceive that they're going to be open. Now that we're sort of progressing to the next stage of approvals, then we'll have more certainty. Typically, development projects are always very difficult to pin down because you don't necessarily know when the construction managers are going to be secured. And there's there's things that are unknown in terms of construction timelines and so on until you've actually engaged that construction manager and they can tell you when they're going to be complete and they're going to be able to stand up the building. But certainly I'd be happy to come and report back on the timeline for the UPCCs, whether or not you choose to support them whenever is convenient for this board.
Thanks for that. I would just say that I'm not convinced that a meeting with the minister will change anything in terms of the provincial priority to move forward with UPCCs and incorporate a hub concept. It may, in fact, just give the minister an opportunity to better explain why that's the course that the province is going forward with. But I certainly could be wrong about that. Director Therrien.
Hi, thank you guys. And I do appreciate you guys' position sort of stuck between us and the ministry. From what I'm hearing, this health hub is going forward with or without us, or sorry, these UPCCs are going forward with or without us. Some of our director's comments have been, let's just withhold all the funding because you're going to build it anyway. I'm thinking we should be a willing partner in this. I think our chances of getting a health hub going forward will be increased by showing that we're a willing partner. I would worry that if we withhold all funding from this, we are showing an unwillingness to be a partner with the ministry. And I think that would endanger our chances of getting a health hub in the future.
Thanks for those comments. And I think we need to wrap this discussion up. We have a couple of people who are going to be speaking for the second or third time. And I'll ask you to make these, hopefully your last comments before we actually have a motion on the floor. Director Morin?
Yeah, I was prepared to make a motion, actually.
Well, we are in receipt, so.
Yeah, sorry.
But you can tell us what you've got in mind.
I was prepared to make a motion to defer consideration of the capital request for UPCCs until after the board's meeting with the Ministry of Health, and that we communicate that we request an urgency.
Okay, thanks for that. And we'll move on to, you may have the opportunity to propose that motion depending on what else comes up. Director Dahl.
Well, I would, if the proposed motion makes it to the floor, I will vote opposed. I would hope that this isn't the only thing that members of this board have done that would show Island Health whether they are supportive of initiatives brought forward by Island Health. I know in Campbell River, we've done a lot of different things with Island Health. So I'm not concerned that denying one time is going to set a precedent. But for Campbell River, with the, I don't deny there's a need for this facility. But for instance, if this facility was going to be located on Shoppers Row, I would vote opposed. But if this was going to be located on 13th Avenue, just a matter of a block and a half away, I would vote in favor. But because we're not being consulted or being made a partner, when you come and ask for someone to fund something, but you haven't shared any information with them, it's pretty hard to call that partnering. And this is not the first time that Island Health has done this. I would think that Island Health would want to partner with communities, not just this board, but with the communities where they're locating these things. And I don't see that as being part of their governance model, which I realize is not a decision that you get to make. So the only decision we get to make is whether we're going to vote in favor of funding it or not funding it. And with no information, sorry, but I can't vote in favor of funding something that I don't know anything about or where it will be located or the impacts that it will have on my community.
Thank you for that. And Director Arbour. Director Arbour, your hand is still raised. Did you want to contribute further? His hand is now down. All right. Okay, we are on receipt and we've had a lot of comments and some suggestions of potential motions, but we are ready to dispense with receipt. Is anyone opposed to receipt? That is carried. And it's time for people to make proposals regarding where they would like to see this going forward. Director Morin.
Yeah, I'll go ahead with that motion to defer consideration of the capital request for UPCCs until after the board's meeting with Minister of Health, and that we communicate that we request an urgent meeting.
Is there a seconder for that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Director Jolicoeur. Discussion. Director Morin.
Just quickly to speak to it, I recognize that we request meetings and we're not always satisfied, but I think that even if the minister sits down in her pajamas and watches this meeting, that it would be an opportunity for us to communicate really clearly our concerns around how the process has gone and around the hub, and hopefully get some clear answers and have some clear discussion that will help us make a decision on this at a future meeting. Thanks.
Thanks, Director Morin. And Director Therrien.
Thank you. May I suggest that we amend this motion to defer the consideration of the funding for the Comox Valley Health Hub until after our meeting with the minister, and that we proceed with the funding of the Campbell River Health Hub.
You're proposing an amendment that specifies the deferring is of the funding of the Comox Valley Urgent Primary Care Center, and that we go ahead with the funding of the Campbell River one. That's a fairly substantial amendment, but if you want to propose it, would we have a seconder? It doesn't appear that we have a seconder, but we'll allow further discussion on this motion, and something may emerge. So that amendment is not on the table at the present moment. Director Dahl.
I kind of like what Director Therrien is saying. Maybe we could just split the motion into two, or we deal with the Comox Valley and Campbell River as two separate motions. As he suggested, he can make that motion, but I think that's a cleaner way of doing it.
All right. So I think you're indicating that you would second that. So Director Therrien, if you'd like to propose that amendment.
Yes. That we separate this into two separate motions one for the Campbell River UPC and one for the Comox Valley UPC.
Can I suggest that it would be simpler if we just said that we defer consideration of the capital funding request for the Comox Valley Urgent and Primary Care Center? And then you can deal with the question of supporting the Campbell River one separately.
Is that a friendly?
Yep, that works for me.
All right, is there a seconder for that amendment?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Director Grieve. Director Grieve, did you want to speak to that?
Yes, actually, you know, world events are changing at a blistering pace. Financial stability is under huge strain. And being that we're not actually bosses of our own house here, when we talk about demanding a meeting with the minister, are we going to be sitting here in February at the next, or whenever in the middle of budget and at a hospital district meeting and still hashing this out without any meeting to the minister? There's absolutely no onus on the minister to meet with us. So can we at least put some kind of a timeline on this? Like defer it to the next meeting?
Thanks for that suggestion, Director Morin.
Yes, sorry, just terms of rustiness with Robert's rules. Can you refresh my memory on a defer motion? I thought it was a place and time and.
I didn't make the motion, but I did suggest it could be made.
In terms of the motion that's on the floor.
I think we need to deal with the motion that's on the floor, which has been amended, and the amendment is in order. Right now we're on the amendment, and I think I'd like to call for the question on this fairly quickly. There's nobody else speaking. The amendment is to add the words Comox Valley in front of urgent and primary care centers. And that essentially means that the board would defer the consideration of the capital funding request for the Comox Valley UPCC. Hopefully that's clear to everyone. On the amendment, is there anyone opposed? All right, the amendment carries. So now we have the main motion once again, which is that the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District Board defer consideration of the capital funding request for cost sharing of the Comox Valley Urgent and Primary Care Center. Could take that S out of there until after a meeting with the Minister of Health and the board requests an urgent meeting. That is the motion that's now on the floor. Director Morin.
So does that mean that we would still be considering the funding for the Campbell River UPCC today?
A motion in that on that would be completely in order following this motion being dealt with.
Thanks.
All right. I don't see anybody else wanting to. Oh, Director Kerr, go ahead.
Sorry, just wanted to declare that I'll be voting against this. I also agree that meeting with the minister isn't going to change this at all. So the UPCC sounds like it's going ahead. We have the choice to fund it or not fund it. I'd prefer we don't fund it and save our money for building our health hub. Thanks.
Thanks. And Director Arbour.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Same thoughts. And I think I agreed with Mayor Dahl around, I don't think that's going to affect the relationship. We do a lot with Island Health and we're big supporters, but it's also equity when you see a bunch of other regions that don't contribute to this. And I don't think we have to. Thanks.
Director Grant. Director Grant, did you wish to speak? All right, it looks like not. Okay, this motion is on the floor. Several people have spoken to it, and I've already made my views known, and I think we'll take this to the vote. And it will be, this is a one person, one vote. This is not weighted. I think that we will start by asking for those in favor, and we may need to poll the people online if I can't see your hands. So all those in favor of the motion to defer this request in regards to the Comox Valley UPCC? All those in favor? All right, I have 7 in favor. Those opposed? Yeah, we will have to poll people online, and we have 1 opposed in the room. So online, I saw opposed Director Deck. Could you put your hands up again, please? If actually, sorry, we're going to go down the list here of those online. So we'll start with Director Davis. Are you in favor or opposed?
In favor.
In favor. Director Arbor?
Opposed.
Opposed. Director Chapman
In favor.
is in favor. Director Wally
Opposed.
is opposed. Director Rice
In favor.
is in favor. Director Grant
Opposed.
is opposed. Director Ron Kerr
In favor.
is in favor. Do we have any more? Director Sinnott
I'm opposed.
is opposed.
Because those polls are gonna jump around, at least it's got. So, Dan Arbor, Deck.
Director Deck
Opposed.
is opposed. Director Cole Hamilton
In favor?
is in favor. Director Jack
Favor.
in favor. Director Lanyon
In favor.
in favor. Could you clarify, Director Lanyon, did you say in favor or not in favor?
I am in favor.
Thank you. Director Jolliker
Opposed.
is opposed. Director Vonish,
In favor.
thank you. Okay, and we'll do the room once again. Those in favor in the room? Director Therrien, Director Grieve, Director Dahl, Director Morin. And Director Mawhinney, were you in favor? And those opposed in the room? Yeah. Okay, thanks, everyone. We just are tallying the vote here. Okay, we have 13 in favor and 8 opposed. The motion carries. And thanks very much for your patience with that. And with the decision to defer consideration of the capital funding request for the Comox Valley Urgent Primary Care Center, we can entertain a motion in relation to the Campbell River Urgent Primary Care Center if anyone is so inclined. Director Therrien.
I'll move the board moves the listed recommendation with the removal of the words Campbell or Comox Valley.
You're moving that the board approve Island Health's capital request for cost sharing for the Campbell River Urgent and Primary Care Center, with such funding being allocated in accordance with option 1 as outlined in the staff report dated September 26, 2025.
Correct.
Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Director Dahl. Would anyone like to speak to that motion? Director Vonish.
Thank you, Chair. I would offer a friendly amendment that we add and that the province work in partnership with the City of Campbell River. I think we've heard clearly that that's an issue for them, and we want this project to be a success. So I think that's an important thing to add. I could have a seconder.
I'll second that and accept that as a friendly amendment.
All right, so the motion will be amended slightly to say after the 2025, and that the province and Island Health work with the Campbell River community regarding such urgent and primary care center.
I would say rather than Campbell River community, say the City of Campbell River.
The City of Campbell River. I'm sorry. Thanks for that. That's agreeable to the mover and seconder. All right. So we're going to consider that a friendly amendment for the sake of efficiency here. Director Dahl.
I appreciate the intent of the amendment, but I will be voting opposed to the motion anyway, because there hasn't been any consultation. So without the consultation to happen first, I'm not going to support funding.
Thanks for that. And Director Morin.
Thanks, Chair. Could we get clarification of what the cost is for just Campbell River?
Is that something that staff can clarify?
Hey, Kelly, yeah, it's in the staff report. It notes that the Campbell River total cost estimate is 6.4 million with the RHD 40% funding amount at 2.6.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. Director Sinnott.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm going to be voting against as well. Just out of context, just so people have context, we have a major medical clinic called the Alder Medical Clinic right kitty corner to our hospital right now. A very large site, almost a quarter of a city block. And that's valued at 2.8 million by BC Assessment. I don't know why they have such a large amount, even though we're funding 40%. I struggle with their numbers and whether they're reasonable. And so I'll be opposing for that, as well as the idea of the location, because I do have some concerns that the city has great plans, including the Strathcona Regional District, and we want to make sure everything integrates properly. And to date, we don't have any idea where this location is going to be and how it would work with our overall city plans. Thank you.
Thanks for that. And Director Arbour.
Yeah, thanks. I'm growing not confused, but a little bit, I guess, confused, because it's just at what point does it stop, the downloading on the health sector? You know, we've helped fund the long-term care facility in Campbell River. The overall agreement is we're supposed to fund hospitals. We've picked up housing. We're doing all these different things. And on this one, I don't know if my ears don't function, but I hear that the UPCCs are going to move forward with or without our funding. So I don't want to go back to my ratepayers and say we're funding things just for the fun of it, things that are clearly outside of our usual responsibility as local government. So I'm just not a little bit confused by this motion. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Further discussion on the motion? It appears that no one else wants to speak to this, so we will vote. The motion is that the board approve Island Health's capital request for cost sharing the Campbell River Urgent and Primary Care Center, with such funding being allocated in accordance with option 1 as outlined in the staff report, and that the province and Island Health work with the City of Campbell River. And this is a weighted vote, and we will poll the directors on this. I have a list here, and we'll start. And I'll ask you to say whether you're in favor or opposed. And Director Arbour.
Opposed.
Director Arbour opposed. Director Chapman.
Opposed.
Thank you, Director Chapman. Director Cole-Hamilton.
Opposed.
Thank you, Director Dahl. Director Dahl's opposed. Director Davis
Opposed.
is opposed. Director Grant,
Opposed.
Director Grieve.
In favor.
Director Grieve's in favor. Director Hillian, I'm opposed. Director Jack
Opposed.
is opposed. Director Jonathan Kerr is opposed. Director Ron Kerr
Opposed.
is opposed. Director Lanyon.
Opposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Lanyon's opposed. Director Mawhinney is opposed. Director Morin is opposed. Director Rice
Opposed.
is opposed. Director Sinnott.
Opposed?
Director Wally
Opposed.
is opposed. Director Vonish
Opposed.
is opposed. Very clearly, the motion fails, and I don't think we need to worry about the numbers. I counted 3 in favor, I believe. All right. Thanks very much. I think we've had a very fruitful discussion this morning with a very clear consensus having emerged. I'd like to thank Kim and Jesse from Island Health for being here. And regardless of the results, we do have lots to do together moving forward. And we will see where we can continue to find ways to work together on our areas of mutual interest and concern. We do have a recommendation that has been passed regarding deferral and seeking a further meeting with the minister, so we will act on that. Director Grieve, you have a comment?
No, sir. I just a question to staff. When is our next hospital board meeting?
Currently, we're meeting in December. The precise date, it'll be a Thursday,
Okay.
the 11th of December.
So that further to my original question, if we don't hear back from then, are we going to revisit this on the agenda?
The resolution is that we defer the matter until after the meeting with the minister. So we'll be pursuing that minister meeting with urgency. And so until that happens, the matter won't be coming back to the board.
So this will come back to the board at that point?
After the minister meeting.
So what if there's no minister meeting? I'm just suggesting it should come back for discussion.
Yeah, we'll have
that
to.
That would be up to the chair.
Thanks for that suggestion. I think I would agree that it's important that if we can get a meeting with the minister, that it happen before that December 11th meeting, so that we can in fact bring this back. That would certainly be my intent. All right. Thanks very much for your work this morning, everyone. I appreciate the participation. And I just want to end by saying that we recognize the complexities in this area, the complexities of both the service delivery and of how our funding models are set up. It requires a lot of what I would call calisthenics on the part of everybody involved to try and come up with collaborative processes for moving forward. And although we remain at a bit of a stalemate here this morning, I think that the discussion has been useful. I'd like to acknowledge Director Mawhinney, who's been involved in some of the meetings that have taken place prior to our last meeting, and who as vice chair will certainly be involved in any consultation regarding how we move forward. Once again, thanks everyone for your participation, and I wish you well for the rest of your day. The meeting, we'll take a motion for adjournment. Moved by Grieve, second by Mawhinney. Anyone opposed? Thank you. We stand adjourned.